All right, hello and welcome. This is Stats 15. What is it? Introduction to Data Science, and I'm your teacher, your professor. My name is Miles Chen. Um, you can call me Miles. I give you permission to call me by my first name. If that feels weird, you can call me Dr. Chen or Professor Chen. That's fine as well. But yeah, welcome to the class. Welcome to UCLA. Welcome back to school. I hope you guys are all doing great. It's really good to see you all. And oh, this is welcome to spring quarter, fall quarter. That's what. Okay. Let's see. Oh, what happened here? Okay. Let's go through the syllabus. And my syllabus just keeps getting longer every quarter. It's up to 10 pages now, and it has its own table of contents, which is a little ridiculous, but I tried to include everything here. So here's our classroom, and yeah, lectures are recorded. I'm going to post them to YouTube, and you can watch them there. Okay, so I have a bunch of office hours. I try to hold a lot of office hours in order to make up for the fact that I'm bad at email. Okay, I didn't like to say this, but now I've accepted this about myself, and I'm bad at written communication. Like, I get text messages and I just leave them unread, and yeah, emails. I don't know. It takes me a long time to respond, so I'm sorry. So instead, in order to try to make up for this deficiency of mine, I try to have a lot of office hours instead. Okay, so I've got in person on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I have a bunch of them online. So Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. I take Fridays off for myself, but also Saturday mornings. Okay, and so hopefully one of these time slots work for you, and if you have some kind of issue, some kind of question, generally I can get it resolved in office hours very quickly. So you need an extension for the homework, come to office hours, and yeah, I'll grant your extension. Okay. If you do send me an email, okay, keep it short. All right. I know sometimes a student might feel like they have to explain the whole situation, and I get that, but I don't know, when it's written, my brain has a hard time just like churning through all of it. So if the request is like, hey, I need an extension, just keep your email short and say, hey, can I get an extension? I'm having personal issues or something, right? And that's fine. Okay. The extension policy in the syllabus is probably written to be a lot more stricter than what I actually am in person. Okay. That's kind of just to cover my bases and keep me out of trouble. But yeah, if you just come to office hours and say, hey, life's hard right now and I want an extension, I'll probably grant it to you. Okay. So that's that. So yeah, that's office hours. That is my, okay. I try to respond to emails, but sometimes it takes me a while. I don't know what happened to this picture here. Okay. Here, the textbook right here, it loads. Okay. You can read it for free as long as you read it in your browser. All right. If you want a print version, then you got to pay for that. Okay. But if you're okay reading things on a screen, and I imagine you are, it's free. Okay. Anything else? Oh, why am I losing everything here? Okay. So I'll talk about each of these things. All right. So as far as the grades and stuff, okay. So I got a few days where, November 11th, that's Veterans Day. November 27th is Thanksgiving. So no office hours on those days. And then the week of Thanksgiving, I will be out traveling. Okay. So I'm going to just record my lectures on a video and post those. Okay. So we won't meet physically in class. It'll be pre-recorded. And then the day before Thanksgiving, which is Wednesday, I'm just canceling class. Okay. So no video, no class, nothing. Just nobody wants to be here on the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving anyway. I don't think so. So yeah, that's this day. Okay. And then this is our plan for what we're going to cover, and then we'll have an exam, and that'll be during week 8. I don't like to call it a midterm because it comes towards the end of the quarter, but it's also not the final exam because UCLA has like very specific rules about like what the final exam actually means. And like if you call something the final exam, then and if a student takes a test that's called the final exam, then they are not allowed to like drop the class or something like that. Okay, there's like specific things. So the final assessment in this class is a final project. That's what's going to be your final assessment. So, but we do have an exam. It's kind of meant to be towards the end of the class. So it's during week 8. Okay, and we'll do that. And it's gonna be in person, which feels a little bit weird because a lot of this class is going to be like writing code, and writing code in person feels a little awkward. But when I first started teaching the class, the exam average was like 80, 85, which felt reasonable. And then, somewhere along the way, ChatGPT came along, and then my exam average shot up to 99%. And that made me feel uncomfortable, okay? And, what are you going to do, right? You can't accuse everybody of cheating, but then it's also like, this feels weird. So yeah, we're going to have to go back to pen and paper here. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm going to assign homework, and then there's also data camp homework. So, and then we've got lecture review quizzes. So we have the exam and the final project. I'll talk about the final project later. The final project is worth a lot. So, want to talk about that, and then we'll talk about the exam. Yeah, I already talked about the exam. Okay. So Data Camp is kind of this learning platform, and basically there's these little kind of courses that you take on Data Camp. And here, let me just what is this? Introduction to why is this? Okay, here we go. All right, so you take these courses, and they have these little chapters. There's like little videos and little kind of like windows where you type in code, and it's kind of this interactive thing. And I think it's a really good platform for learning and introducing some concepts and things. Obviously, I will teach stuff in class, but there's also, I'm going to assign homework out of Data Camp as well. And so the way this is going to work is I'm going to send an invitation to everybody. You will accept that invitation, and you will be granted access to Data Camp, okay? Data Camp is normally like a paid subscription service. You have to pay, it's like $30 a month or something, but then because you're enrolled in this class, you get free access. And you'll do the courses, and then when you're done with the course, you get like this little certificate of accomplishment, which I don't know. I guess they say you could share on LinkedIn or something. I don't know. So anyway, that's how it's gonna go, and yeah, I guess if you want to share it, you can. You don't have to. And then so you'll download that PDF, and then on Canvas. So I'll I'll publish this in just a moment. But basically, on Canvas, it'll say, you know, submit your homework, and you'll upload the PDF that you of your statement of accomplishment or something like that. Okay. And so that's the DataCamp homework. And then there's going to be regular old homework where I will kind of assign problems, and then you will complete those, answer them, and then it's done on the computer, and you'll knit them and produce a PDF and upload that. Okay. So that's that. Okay, and then another part is what I call lecture viewing quizzes. And so I don't take attendance per se, but I do want you to come to class. It feels much better to have the classroom full, and I like seeing you guys. And but if you miss class and if you don't come, I want to make sure you at least watch the video recording of class, and to kind of enforce this. This is a loose enforcement here. Have you take these lecture viewing quizzes, okay? And so if you look at the view quiz, the way it works is there's just a few questions. There's no actual context to any of these questions. You're not going to find the answers in the notes, and the only way you get them is I'm going to say the first question, the answer is D, okay? And then so everybody should write this down, all right? Because this is for real. Today there is a quiz that is associated with today. So week 0 Friday. The first question, the answer is the letter D, okay? And then you'll enter this when class is done, okay? And then I will give you the answers to question 2 and question 3 later on, and you will fill this out, okay? So it's super easy. If you come to class and you're listening, I will give you the answers to the thing, and you'll get your points, okay? Just make sure you do it, okay? Don't make sure you click. Don't misclick, okay? If you misclick, and then you won't get your points, all right? So the first answer is D, and then each view quiz will lock up before the next lecture, okay? So our next lecture is Monday, and so just make sure, you can even do it right now, as soon as class is going on, but just make sure you do it before next lecture begins, okay? And that's it. And I'm probably too generous. You get 15% just for that. It's like equal to all of your homework, okay? Just for doing that. But yeah, I feel like coming to class and watching the videos or lectures is important. So that's what I did. Okay. Yeah, final project. We'll talk about that. That is going to be the culmination. Okay. Oh, and don't come to class if you're sick. Okay. And that's that. Okay. Any questions? All right. Okay. Well, let's talk about Stats 15, Introduction to Data Science. And yeah, I'm excited. I like teaching this class. Okay, so what is data science? It's kind of this thing that it's like it became it's like a term that has probably existed only for, I don't know, a decade or so. Okay, it's not like in the 1990s there was no such thing as data science, or the early 2000s there was no such thing. But it's a thing. And, how do we define this? So this is what Wikipedia says. It says data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses, okay, all right, you guys can read. But basically, we are kind of living in this age where we have tons of data, okay? We have tons and tons of data. But what we want is information, okay? Information is what we want, but data, that's what we have, okay? So how do we go from the data to useful information, all right? That's what data science is about. Okay, we're trying to find insight and meaning from whatever data we've collected. It's kind of grown out of the field of statistics. Statistics was also all about data, but I would argue statistics, the kind of the roots of statistic came at a time where data was rare and expensive to collect. And that kind of still exists today, especially in like medical settings where, you know, if you want to collect data, you have to have a patient, they have to sign kind of releases, you have to pay nurses and doctors to conduct medical tests and things like that. And it's very expensive. Like one number in that data set might represent thousands of dollars of expense to just kind of collect that information. So there's still a time, there are still lots of cases where data is rare and expensive. Some of the earlier applications of statistics came at a time where data was coming from like agricultural settings where they would test out a certain set of conditions, you know, this kind of fertilizer, this kind of watering, this kind of fertilizer mixture and stuff like that. And then they'd have to wait like an entire growing season, a year. They would harvest it and they would measure how much that harvest was. Okay, and they could say, okay, when we use this combination of things, this is how much we harvested, and when we use this combination of things, this is how much we harvested. So basically, each data point there was like an entire year of investment. So statistics kind of evolved out of that need to try to maximize the information we could get from very little data. Okay, but now we're kind of in this flip side where we have like mountains of data. Okay, you know, like you use your phone, you walk around, it's telling the internet your location data, right? You interact with a website, every single click, every image that loads, every video that starts to play, okay? It records, it's logging all of that. It says, oh, we played this video for 2 seconds before they swiped to the next one, okay? They watched this whole video, okay, before they swiped. They tapped like, they left a comment. All of this data is being, every kind of second, oh, the person interacts with the website at 2 a.m. most often or something, you know? All of this is being recorded. We have mountains and mountains and mountains of data. But the idea is still, we want to get useful information out of it, okay? So, you know, we're kind of having, you know, statistics, I would say, is this umbrella, okay? The origins come from a time where data was very rare and expensive. But now we have this other situation where we have mountains of it. We're trying to understand it. And this class is more on a little bit closer, not to the giant mountains of data, but kind of like moderately sized piles of data. Okay, if we can say that. Okay, and that's what we're saying. All right. So what did I say? Oh yeah. So we're living in this golden age of data. Yeah, the double-edged sword is we're in this kind of this privacy dark age. I don't know if we'll ever get our privacy back. But yeah, the reason why data is so valuable, okay, and companies are spending lots and lots of money to acquire data, and the reason why is because it's useful. When you use data to make your conclusions and decisions, it's reliable, okay, or a lot more reliable than basing it off of gut feelings or tradition or, you know, some other kind of systems. You can kind of test out whether your models of what you think, how things are working, you can test that out by comparing it against the data, okay? Yeah, companies, basically, anytime you go into a store and it says, hey, we'll give you a discount if you download our app, that is the company spending money to get data from you. Because when you download that app and you click the terms and conditions, basically it says, we're going to be collecting this data and analyzing it, okay? And in exchange, you get 5% off your next purchase, okay? And they're saying, hey, we're willing to lose 5% of our margins or profit or revenue in order to acquire this data, because they're expecting to make that money back later, right? Um, oh, yeah, and I think people are realizing data is important, and so um, yeah, unfortunately, I think there's also a lot of kind of charlatans and just people out on the internet. You know, everybody's got a microphone and a camera these days, and people can just say wild and crazy things, right? And they'll say stuff like, um, but don't take my word for it. This is what the data shows, okay? And it's actually not what the data shows, right? They're just making an appeal to the data to kind of give legitimacy to whatever crazy thing they're saying, all right? There's people that say outrageous stuff, and then they say, but yeah, if you look at the data, that's what it says. If you look at the data, blah, blah, blah. And that's not really what the data is saying. Or if you look closely, there's problems with how the data was collected. There's problems with that, and that's probably not really the kind of conclusion that I mean, yeah. We could probably think of something or somebody, and you're just like, wow, this feels crazy. This doesn't feel right. Okay, but then they'll say, oh, but that's what the data shows. Okay, and I think we're at this time where people say, oh yeah, there is like credibility in the data. Okay, but the general population doesn't have data literacy, and so they can be fooled by somebody saying, hey, this is what the data is saying. It's not actually saying that, but they can kind of fool people, right? It's kind of like you go back to the Middle Ages where the general population couldn't read, okay, was illiterate, but then you had people saying, I've read the Holy Scriptures, and the Holy Scriptures say this, you need to do this, and you need to give me money, and things like that, right? And they can manipulate people because people weren't able to read for themselves, right? And so I think it's important that you, and I have hopes, but I don't know, that we can have a kind of a general amount of data literacy so that we can kind of understand what data actually is saying and whether identify if there's problems with data. And anyway, okay. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, data science versus statistics. I already kind of talked about that with the foundations and stuff like that. So let me just kind of skip over that. Okay. If I had to kind of boil down what data science comes down to, it's kind of a combination of a few things. There's going to be math and stats knowledge. And then on this diagram, it says hacking skills, but I would say like coding, okay, the ability to code. And then the bottom part says substantive expertise. And basically it just means you need to be familiar with the subject matter, okay? So because data is coming out of all kinds of different applications, as far as a class like this, or if you're like going to major in data science or data theory or something like that, we can really only give you the top 2 circles, okay? Because you might apply data science stuff to the field of public health, or maybe the field of sports, right? Baseball or basketball, or maybe marketing or movies or different kinds of things, music. And we can't cover everything, okay? And, if you want to analyze baseball statistics, you have to be familiar with baseball. You have to understand like what OPS and all of these different things, WAR and all of these things mean, okay? Otherwise, it's not going to be useful, right? If you want to analyze basketball statistics, right? You have all kinds of like, defensive ratings and stuff like that, right? You got these different things, and you got to be familiar with that. Otherwise, you can't be useful in your analysis, okay? But in our class, we can kind of give you some of this stuff. I think one thing that surprises students when they first take this class, they go, I didn't realize how much coding there would be, okay? I didn't realize we were going to be writing so much code, okay? And this is not a programming class, okay? This is not a computer science class Like if you were to major in computer science, you learn a lot of kind of these more advanced concepts, okay, like recursion and things like that. And that's not even that advanced, but we're not going to be covering a lot of these things. However, you do have to write code and be comfortable with writing code, and because the way we interact is our data sets are so big that we can't analyze them by hand, okay? And they're also at a point where traditional tools like using Excel and Google Sheets is not adequate enough, okay? And so, yes, you can do basic statistics with Google Excel and Google Sheets and things like that. But basically, the things we want to do with our tables of data require us to interact with them using computer code, okay? So, if this is the first time you've ever written computer code, there are going to be some challenges and frustrating things in the beginning, okay? Like every, character, capital and lowercase, like those things matter, okay? The symbols, like did you use a square bracket instead of a parentheses or something like that? That makes a difference. Did you use a comma instead of a dot? Okay, those things make a difference. So there is going to be code, and I want us to be kind of comfortable with that. And we're going to introduce. Yes, question.
Is it mostly Python, or what are we supposed to be familiar with?
You're not supposed to be familiar with anything.
Okay, what are we using?
I'm going to be using R. Okay, and there's a debate. Like I think one of my things is like, why R and why not Python? Okay, so you don't have to read these. I mean, you can read these slides. Okay, it's like, what is data theory? That's like the other major, and then how is this class different from Stats 10 and stuff like that. Okay, so I've made a deliberate choice to use R rather than Python. Now I love both R and Python. Okay. I teach the class I teach right before this is a Python class. Okay, so I'm a big fan, and but as far as just straight up data analysis, I believe R does a better job. Okay, so Python, you have pandas, and so if you're like, if this means anything to you, this is my argument. Okay, if you have pandas and things like that. In R, I'm going to teach actually R with the tidyverse. And in my opinion, there's a whole lot of tools that make the data analysis very kind of smooth and easy. And you can focus on doing things. Like once you understand the syntax, you can focus on doing things rather than like juggling a whole bunch of stuff around. And I do believe R and the tidyverse do a better job of that than Python or R by itself, okay? Because R is a language, and we're going to be using R plus a set of packages and tools called the tidyverse, okay? So I think it's better than R by itself. I think it's better than Python and pandas. And so that's what we're going to use. And honestly, if you become familiar with R and the tidyverse, a lot of it will translate fairly well into SQL. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar or if you've heard of SQL, SQL. The tidyverse was a lot kind of probably drew a lot of inspiration from SQL, and so therefore going from the tidyverse to SQL is a reasonable transition. It's not instant, but it's reasonable. So anyway, that's what I'm going to we're going to do R there. Okay. Let me give you your second view quiz answer, and it's the letter C. C as in cat. C as in cat. Okay. I have to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and academic integrity. Okay, and here's the truth that I think some professors are having a hard time with this truth. But the thing is our AI tools are really good. Okay, and if an AI took this class, it'd probably get an A. All right, and you could do all the homework I assign, even like the projects. There's nothing in this class that really goes beyond what AI is capable of doing. Okay, you could have AI answer all of your homework. You could have AI write your project, and I might be like, this feels weird, but like it's hard to prove. Okay, and yeah, so there's a temptation for that, right? Also, even if you don't use AI, if you search hard enough, okay, you could probably find all of the answers to the homework problems anyway, okay? Because it's like from a textbook, and textbook answers exist out on the internet. But the goal of this class isn't to finish the class, okay? The goal of the class isn't, you're here in university because I think, number one, you want to learn, okay? Obviously, you want to get your degree, okay? You want to get that degree at the end, okay? Because the degree is supposed to show or kind of be this certificate that says you have learned, okay? And it's a sad story if you get your degree, but you didn't learn anything, okay? That's a sad, that's sad, right? Like you came here and spent 4 years of your life or whatever, and you have the degree to show for it, but then did you actually learn anything? And if the answer is I didn't actually learn anything, that's sad. Okay, sure, we made friends along the way, but we also want to learn. Okay, and so we have an understanding of this no pain, no gain when it comes to things like working out at the gym. Okay, so if you go to the gym to lift weights, okay, we understand that the goal isn't for the weights to get picked up off the ground. Okay, we understand that it's the process of lifting the weights that's hard for us that will help us reach the real goal of getting stronger. Okay, and so if you want to get stronger by going to the gym, you have to work out. You have to lift weights that are hard for you to lift. Okay, you can't just pick up 1 pound weights and say I've got a good workout. Okay, you have to work hard, and then and you do something that's difficult. You rest, you eat healthy, and then your body gets stronger. Okay, and the same thing happens with the brain. Okay, you have to kind of push your brain to do things that are hard, right? And just like working out at the gym, if you do only things that are super easy, your brain's not gonna go through the effort of getting stronger. Okay, you have to kind of push your brain, and then your brain says, oh, that was tough, can we form new connections in our brain to make it easier in the future? Okay, and then you go to sleep, and it does. Right, like probably, I don't know, if you drive, like the very first time you drove a car, it was probably hard. There was like a whole bunch of stuff for you to like think about and take into account and be aware of. And then, but the more you've done it, like your brain made those connections, and then you feel confident in driving, right? Same kind of things for all of this stuff. Your first time coding, okay? It's going to feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. How am I going to keep track of all of this, okay? You do it enough, you push your brain, okay? You go to sleep, okay? So sleep is important. I feel like your mom saying that, but sleep is important. Your brain forms connections. It comes easier, okay? If you ask the AI to do your work for you, Okay? It's like going to the gym, okay? And then, I don't know, taking a selfie and say, hey, I'm at the gym. But then when it comes time to lift the weights, you have somebody else lift the weights for you, okay? There's no point to that, right? That's not going to help you. Like, why are you bothering? Just so you can get the selfie, all right? Just so you have something to submit for the homework? That's not the point, okay? The point is for you to lift the weights yourself. The point is for you to do the homework yourself, okay? If you have the AI do it for you, that's like asking somebody else to lift the weights for you. You're not gonna, it's not gonna help you towards learning, okay? It happens though, okay? People, students do use AI, and there's a lot of kind of despair. I talked to other professors and teachers, and I'm on like the professors subreddit, and there's a lot of despair of surrounding AI and stuff. And there's sometimes this tone of like, oh, kids these days and stuff. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way about students. Okay, I don't know you guys yet, but I'm optimistic. Okay, we're here at UCLA, and I feel like it's such a privilege to be here at UCLA because I feel like all of the students here, like, you guys care about learning and you want to do well, and you did well in high school, and you did well at your community college, or you did well wherever you were, and you're here now. You don't get into UCLA if you didn't do well, and you're excited to learn, and so that's exciting for me. And but I recognize there's a conflict, right? Because this whole time, like, you've been getting good grades. You got into UCLA because you got good grades, and so it's easy to think grades is the important thing. Okay, it's easy to get that mixed up, right? But really, the learning is the important part, okay? If you learn, you should get the good grade, okay? And it's frustrating when it doesn't seem to align, okay? But if you think the grade is the most important and I don't need to learn, okay, then it's going to be tempting to use something like an AI to help you get that grade, okay? But that's going to come at the expense of the learning part, right? It's a tough situation. I don't know. I don't have a solution for this, okay? Because it's like, well, why don't you just get rid of the grades? Okay, well, if we get rid of the grades, then you lose a very powerful motivating force, okay? Because if I just said, hey, everybody's going to get an A in this class no matter what you do, then for a lot of you, that will remove a lot of motivation to work hard, okay? And so we do have grades as a reward to kind of motivate you, but at the same time, that's not the ultimate goal, okay? The learning is the goal. And so please keep that in mind, okay? And so anyway, my expectations, yeah, do the best you can. Don't use the AI. Don't seek out, copy someone else's answers. And, if you can't complete something to 100%, complete what you can, turn in what you got. You won't get 100% on the grade, but I want you to be okay with that, okay? Let's see. All right, yeah, talk. There is a lot of kind of coding. So this is a coding class. I don't know if it's a coding class, but there is a lot of coding happening in the class. So, discuss with your teammates, classmates, and whatnot, okay? There's also this other question. Oh, I'm going to run out of time. There's so much I want to say. This is my problem. I gave you 2 answers, right? Okay. I guess I'll go ahead and give you your third view quiz answer. Your third answer is the letter E. E as an elephant. E as an elephant. There's kind of this question. Is this class even worth learning, right? Because there's like, if AI can do everything, like, is my job going to get replaced by AI, right? You guys are students right now, but there's kind of this question like, when I graduate, will there still be a job? Will all of our jobs be taken by AI? Okay. And is this even worth learning, right? If AI can do data science, are there going to be any data science jobs? Okay. I'm biased. I have to tell myself this. Okay. But I also truly believe it. All right. Yes, this class is worth learning. And yes, there will still be data science jobs. Okay. I like to think of like learning and knowledge as kind of this, as like a pyramid. Okay. And things build off of each other, right? In elementary school, like first and second grade, you learned addition and multiplication. And I imagine you were probably better than your peers even in first and second grade, okay? And that probably continued. And like you're in junior high and you're starting to learn like algebra and things like that, right? And because you did better than your peers, they might have even separated you from your other classmates, and you were just with you as students were just in a group of students who are pretty good at math, and you guys learned, went on the fast track and you learned algebra and geometry and calculus and things like that. Okay. But all of that built off of previous knowledge, right? Your algebra built off of your arithmetic, the calculus built off of the algebra, and things like that. And, calculators have always been available, right? But if you say, well, I don't need to learn arithmetic because calculators can do addition and subtraction and multiplication, okay, you would have had a very rocky foundation, and the concepts in algebra probably wouldn't have come so well, right? And so anyway, if we think about data science jobs, okay, there's a lot that AI can do, okay, but there's also a lot that AI can't do, okay? It can't do a lot of this really advanced thinking. And I don't know if it will for a long time, okay? It's getting better. It's doing all kinds of stuff. It is really getting better, but truly doing complex data science and data analysis stuff, it's not there, okay? And I don't know if it will get there even in the next 5 or 10 years, okay? But AI, it's true. It can do everything down at the bottom, okay? All of this basic stuff, like the basic data science stuff, all the stuff we're going to be covering in this class, summarizing your data, writing the basic code to kind of do all of that, AI is really good at that, okay? It can do everything that we cover in this class. But if you want to have job security, and you have a job that's not going to get taken over by AI, you need to be able to do these more tough and advanced skills, okay? But if you want to learn these tough and advanced skills at the top of the pyramid, you need to have a strong foundation here, okay? And so my hope is that this class will give you an opportunity to learn that foundational stuff, exercise it, and build that strong foundation yourself. And then you can build on top of that, learn the more advanced things, and learn the kind of tough things that I don't think AI is going to be able to do, not for a long time. And so, but yeah, it is true. Can AI handle all of this stuff at the bottom? Yeah, easily, okay? But if you use AI to do all of this stuff for you, you're not going to have a strong foundation, okay? So that's what I wanted to say. Okay, we got 5 minutes left. I wanted to say a lot about grades in life. And if you take another class with me in the future, I do say a lot about, I give the same spiel with every class, but I do think this is important. Okay. And yeah, maybe I won't finish everything I have to say, but, your grades don't define you. Okay. All of you, I imagine, had very good grades in high school and very good grades if you went to a community college or wherever, and And right now you're in school, and a lot of your time and energy is going to be devoted to your classes and learning. And because of that, it can feel like grades are really, really, really important. Okay. And they play a role, but they are not the most important thing. Okay. I can relate. All right. And I had an unhealthy relationship with grades. Okay. In high school, I got good grades. I was a good student, and in my senior year, I got accepted into my dream school. I got into Caltech. Okay, and that was like my dream school. I thought I was gonna study like physics or something and learn the mysteries of the universe. Um, and I go to Caltech, and it was really, really, really hard. Okay, in high school, I think I managed to kind of get good grades without ever establishing strong study habits. It was kind of just like I could just cram at the last second and then still manage to get an A on the tests, and that wasn't effective at Caltech. At Caltech, you really like you had to have good study habits. You had to it was a lot of stuff, and I didn't do well. And so my very first quarter at Caltech, I got my first C ever, and I was like, oh man, I've never had a C before. And then they were also quarter system. My first winter quarter, I got my first D ever, and then spring quarter, everything kind of fell apart. I failed multiple classes. I was put on academic probation. They were like, you have to get these good grades next time, otherwise we're going to kick you out. And I became depressed. I had tied my value as a person to my grades. It was kind of like, I'm not a star athlete. I don't think that's a surprise, but it was like, yeah, it's fine. I'm okay. I don't need all of these other things because I've got good grades, because I saw my value as a person coming from my grades. And so when that happened and I didn't have good grades, it was like, what is my value as a person? Okay. And it was hard for me. I'm grateful. My parents were supportive. My father was especially supportive during that time, and told me that this dream of going to Caltech just wasn't worth the mental toll it was taking on me. And so I ended up dropping out, and then I transferred to another school, and I finished my degree there. And but that kind of painful process, overall, looking back, it was good, because it forced me to separate my identity from my grades and my academic achievement. Okay, I defined and recognized that I, as a person, have intrinsic value apart from, whatever my academic achievements were. Okay, and that and I'm grateful for that lesson. And I don't know where you are personally, okay, in your kind of relationship with grades. I want all of you to have kind of healthy relationships between yourself and grades, and whatever it is in your life. And so I want to say, yeah, your grades do not define you. Okay, maybe I'll talk about work-life balance at another point, but we'll stop and end here. Anyway, it's great to see you all, and I look forward to a good quarter, and we'll see you guys. Have a good weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday. There's a question back there. Huh?